Hey fam. This week we are taking a pause from the interviews with my grandma due to the amount of time they take to edit. I'm going back through multiple interviews in multiple years, and I don't want to forget anything. So instead of making you guys wait an extra week, Sam is taking the lead to tell you the tragic and horrific story of the Bethesda butcher. Welcome to Who Are You? Curious Stories of Family Lore. I'm Wietze.
And I'm Sam Ivy. This is episode 30. I'm going to call it the Bethesda Butcher.
The what
The
butcher?
title of our subject, Bethesda Butcher.
Bethesda?
Bethesda.
Oh, I don't understand my brain right now.
So it's Bethesda.
Bethesda?
Yeah, Bethesda.
Bethesda. The Bethesda butcher. Oh my gosh, I've never heard of this.
Yeah, so I hadn't either, actually. And what's really funny and why I went down this rabbit hole is me being me watching true crime documentaries one day. I'm like, I've never actually researched, was there any notorious serial killers from the state of Maryland? And I was like, so, let me deep dive. Let me go down and, see, if there's any iconic ones from my state. And then I came across the Bethesda Butcher. Warning ahead of time, trigger warning. Some of the content I will be talking about is a little graphic, not necessarily in the sexual manner, but definitely in the details that I'm giving and the visuals I can create for you. So if that is something that's going to be triggering or anything to that nature, here's your warning now. Or if true crime and stuff like that just ain't your flavor, I will not be upset if you skip and move on to the next episode. But fair warning now.
Yeah, with a title like the Bethesda Butcher, I can completely understand why there is a trigger warning at the beginning of this. Doesn't seem friendly.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to be your neighborhood butcher you're going to get steaks from. At least I wouldn't.
Oh god. That reminds me, didn't that happen? Didn't some butcher kill people? And
yeah, there's actually another guy that's like that in the state of Maryland that I'll probably research into later. But
it's also
this guy
in
is kind of there's another dude in Maryland that did that shit.
Oh my god.
There's probably multiples around the world, but I know of a notorious one in Maryland. But this guy's a little different. But he got his name because he committed multiple murders. So I'm just going to kind of give you off with a little rough summary of tidbits of what I'm going to be talking about, and then we're going to do a deep dive into the actual story.
Okay.
So to start off, the Bethesda Butcher, his actual name is Thomas Francis Edwards. He was born in 1944 and died in 2009. He was a suspect in 2 murders that were actually committed along the Capitol Beltway. He was never tried for those murders, but he was just suspected of those, and that's actually here in Maryland. But he was convicted.
Do you know what those murders? No, you're good. Do you know what those murders he was suspected of 2 murders? Do you know what those murders were?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. This is just a little tidbits of what I'm going to be talking about, and then we're going to do a deep dive into exactly what these details are.
I see. I'm jumping all of the guns. Okay.
It's all good. I'm glad I got your interest.
Yes, you surely do. I'm like, wait, who are these? Who was murdered and how and why? And holy shit, why was he suspected? So many immediate follow-up questions.
So he was actually eventually convicted and sentenced to death for murdering a girl in the state of California back in 1981. He was on death row up until he died in 2009. So the time span of his crime spree that he did, it was from 1970 to 1981, just to kind of give you a rough time frame of when all this occurred. He wasn't apprehended until September 28th of 1981. So like late
Okay.
1980s.
Dang.
And it's funny, well, not funny, it's sad, and
You said
it's
late
ironic that it
1980s?
was
Sorry to cut you off.
like
You said
September.
late 1980s or early 1980s?
Yeah, September 28th. It was September 28th is the exact day, so like late 1980s is when he finally got caught.
Oh, late
1981.
1980? Oh, late 1981.
Yeah,
Okay.
1981.
Sorry, I thought you said it wasn't until the late 80s that he got caught. So I was like, wait, what the fuck? How? But you said late 1981. Okay, my bad.
Yep. No, you're good. And it was 3 years after his death where they actually, the two open cases that he was suspected of, they found out with DNA that he actually was the killer for those women. So he eventually was marked as the killer for those guys. So those cases did eventually get closed. But I'll get more into that later. But I just thought that was kind of a cool little like, hey, just so you know, the story is a little bad, but there's a little light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, like at least justice was served eventually for two.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many there were, but if we're just starting
there was
off
a few.
with two, yeah, if we're just starting off with two, I'm worried.
So I'm going to start off with a little bit of background in Edwards and who he was as a person and what like developed him until I get into like his crimes. So good old Thomas Francis Edwards was born in 1944. He was actually born in Bethesda, Maryland, which is not too far from where I live in Maryland, believe it or not, which is kind of why I was interested in the story to begin with. It was, close home ties.
There's the connection to our podcast. This
Mhm.
happened close to where you were born, where you grew up, near the area that made you. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, that's what our podcast is we're researching not only our family members, our family tree, but like the things that happened around us. And I think it's cool to do that and to educate yourself on some of the crazy things that have happened. I think
it's cool to like educate yourself on your area, but also like pay homage to those, because who knows who's listening to our podcast. It could be a relative, it could be a survivor or something along those lines, and for us to pay it homage and say it respectfully. And at the end of the day, everybody's story deserves to get told.
Yeah, talking about the people who survived, saying their names, like, it's powerful.
And all the information I'm sharing is out there for the public to see as well. So it's nothing that I'm going across any boundaries or crossing any lines for any of those that are relatives or survivors or victims along those lines.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome.
But yeah, so back to Edwards here. So yeah, he was born in Bethesda, Maryland. He was actually adopted at a really early age. It didn't specify on what age, but it was when he was super young. He was adopted by a good family. They already had a kid, a nice little son of their own. But pretty every average Joe family for like that 40s era. His adoptive father, was actually a government official based in Washington, D.C. So that kind of puts you like location perspective wise. But pretty his father actually, had, decent upbringing, wasn't necessarily like the wealthiest, but wasn't, in the dirt. He could have had worse adoptive parents. But then tragedy struck for Edwards when his adoptive father actually died from disclosed cases. There is no documentation that you can access that's available to show like what this man died from. But he died in, it said, like, the late 1950s. Yeah, so I don't know, like, what specifically he did for the government that made it where it was disclosed.
Like you're not allowed to know how he died?
Like, there's no document you can click on. Like, everything I think I tried to had, like, black lines through it if you did look at anything. Like, it was disclosed.
So they're redacting how he died, and he was a government official?
Yeah. And it was also back in the 50s, too. So think about, like, what type of, like, note-taking and record-keeping was, like, done.
True. Yeah. That's just, like, weird, though. Why would they redact his... I thought it was weird,
too.
Yeah. Huh.
But it didn't name his father either in the research that I found. But either way, so he was born in 1944. His only person he knew as a dad died in 1950, which caused his mom to pack up both the sons and, have to move and, figure out life as a single mother now. So Edwards was about 14 years old when he kind of, started showing typical what we would know now as signs of like sociopathic behavior or like serial killer like behavior. Like he started, terrorizing the neighborhood kids, like wasn't like killing animals or anything like that, but being a bully and, like testing the limits, testing the waters.
And everyone's probably saying back then, oh, boys will be boys.
Boys be
You know, like,
boys. Yeah.
yeah.
He's gonna grow out of it. Or, his dad did just die too, so they could have been chopping it up to, he's going through something.
And that very well could
But
have been the case. Like, maybe he was, but without the proper way to heal and deal with that, if you keep doing destructive things and nobody around you corrects you, you're going to start to think it's okay to do those
or if
things.
you, as the adult, decide to not acknowledge it and, like, see that there is a problem there, to at least talk about it, like, that you're also part of the issue.
Yep.
But yeah, so back to Edward. So he's, terrorizing the neighborhood kids. He decided to escalate his harassment, to the point that one night this Girl Scout group was doing a little camp out, and Edwards decided to roll up unannounced. He grabbed a young teen girl known as Barbara Sneak from behind with a knife in hand. He put his hand over her mouth and then decided to cut off her ponytail, and then let her go.
Fuck?
But then, and then he proceeded to slit their tent open, and then he ran off.
Oh my god. And the name, like, the last name Sneak is not lost on me in the irony of the situation, not to, like, I don't know, belittle the situation or anything, but thank God that's all he did. But, like, how traumatizing for a teenage girl who, our hair is everything when we're teenagers.
Exactly.
Fuck.
And, like,
what the fuck?
He did that, and all the girls saw him, and the whole neighborhood knew him, so he was easy to identify, and they, told the parents and got him in trouble and whatever. So after that, he was then sent over to what was known as the Springfield State Hospital, for, like, a mandatory psych evaluation to be like, yo, like, why are you doing this? Why are you terrorizing? And, like, it was in the intent that they were going to press charges, but the charges got dropped. He's 14, boys will be boys, as you said. So that was, like, his first thing as, like, a preteen that was kind of showing signs of, like, hey, like, something's wrong with Ed here. We might want to go, do something about that. But nothing was done. It was on January 22nd. No, that's just his last name, so that's what I've been calling him. Because, like, anything else was, like, known as the Bethesda Butcher, but Thomas just feels weird because I have a Thomas in my family, so, like, it's easy to just call him Ed. Edward, Ed, that's, So, on January 22nd, 1963, Edwards and two others, like, young preteen boys, decided to attack a bowling manager whose name was Richard W. Robbins. They rolled up on this man. They attempted to hit him on the head with a blackjack, but missed and hit him on the shoulder, but still knocking him down.
What's a blackjack? Like a bat?
I think so. That's what it said. Or, that's just what the article says that I found. But I'm imagining kind of like a tire iron or something.
I'm going to look it up right now. Hold on. Blackjack. That is a blackjack tool? Question mark? A compact leather-covered impact weapon containing a heavy, dense core, often lead, used for close quarters self-defense, commonly featuring a flat, flexible design.
Okay.
And it looks like this.
Oh, okay. Almost like a cop stick or like a nightstick.
Yeah. The word cop stick?
Yeah, the nightstick, a cop,
Sorry.
No, you're good.
There's a name for it. Is it a baton, or is that what they toss around when you're, like, performing?
That's what I know. Baton twirling is like that thing. But yeah, so back to them attacking this bowling manager, Mr. Richard W. Robbins. They went ahead and hit him. They knocked him over because they missed his head, hit his shoulder. And their whole intent was to steal the bag he had, thinking that he had all the money from closing up the shop or something along those lines. In reality, they ran away with, like, a bowling ball and, like, nothing. But
so total waste of time.
Suspects were eventually caught, and then they were sent to a reformatory school in Hagerstown, Maryland. Like, all three of them. But however, that was back in 1963. By early 1964, Edwards was transferred to the Patuxent Institute because his problems were a little bit more advanced than everybody else's, and they realized, hey, there's something wrong with Ed here. So he went there
Yeah,
to
there's been
yeah.
something wrong with Ed there.
But they went ahead and he went there to undergo psycho psychotherapeutic treatment. Um, so he did that for a little bit, for about like 4 years, I would say. And they, all their tests for the doctors had at the time said that, his treatment was successful, which led to him eventually getting paroled to a halfway house in Baltimore, Maryland in 1968.
I wonder what their success criteria in 1968 was back then that made them think and believe that good old Ed there was ready to be out
And
free
like,
in the world.
what exactly was their psychotherapeutic treatments they were doing at the time? Because
Oh,
this is like
probably
60s.
frying his, yeah, probably. I bet there was still electric shock therapy.
Well, I'm
Probably
also
isolation.
considering, because Maryland was also known for the illegal medical testing that they, not medical testing, but the legal testing they did on people with LSD at the time when they were messing with the chemical. And that's
Ooh,
something I want to talk about on an eventual like episode of the podcast too, because that's like a whole like big thing. So who
yeah,
knows?
that
Who
would be
knows
very
like who they were
interesting.
like doing what they were doing to Ed. But
Yeah,
either way, he was left.
maybe he'll name,
He was let out.
maybe his name will come up later on, and we'll circle back when we get to that episode. So if it does, remember this moment. If it doesn't, do not remember this moment.
Yeah. Either way, features to come. But yeah, so
But
either way, they
that's crazy
said, all
though.
right,
Oh, sorry, I was just coughed.
you're good. They said, Eddie boy, you're good. We're gonna send you to a halfway house. We'll get you set up to get things rolling. Go ahead and start living life. So that was back in 1968. So that's the backstory I have on Eddie boy. So now we're gonna jump into the crimes because it was 2 years after being let out of the halfway house that his, crimes started to occur. In
Yeah.
1970. The first crime that occurred that we're going to talk about is on January 16th, 1970. The victim was a 14-year-old Sherry Bristol Kennedy.
Oh my
She
God.
left her
So
home that
young.
day in Potomac, Maryland, to visit a friend who was actually babysitting at an apartment near Montgomery Mall Shopping Center.
Damn.
So she, wasn't that far. She did a little walk over. It's like, hey, girlfriend, what's up? Her and that
That's
friend
so
actually ended up getting into a
terrifying.
fight.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I keep cutting you off, but it's just like 14 is so young and you're just doing something so like
Normal.
casual.
So,
Yeah. Sorry.
especially for the 70s, like, how else were, like, girls gonna make money back in that time? Like, you babysat.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, her and her friend got into a fight, which, caused Kennedy to, leave and start walking home that night. So somewhere from the Montgomery Shopping Center apartment buildings that she went to her house in Potomac, Maryland, is when she got abducted by Edwards along that route.
Damn. She was just walking out along the street and you just pulled up and took her?
Yep. I mean, young, small, 14-year-old, roll up, not a lot of street lights, picked her up. He proceeded to then stab her 7 times in the head with an ice pick.
Oh my God.
He then slashed her throat. So she was ear to ear slashed. And then he lastly shot her with a Ruger pistol.
That
22
is,
caliber to be exact.
that is so overkill. So violent for what the hell? Like, for what reason?
Yep. So he did that. I will say he did not like sexually assault her or anything like that. So that like he did not do, but he did all those things to her, stabbed her, sliced her throat, shot her, and then he abandoned her body under a bridge in a snowy ravine and dipped.
Damn.
It
So this
wasn't
was in the
long.
winter?
It was in January. So like, for
Wow.
Maryland, like our winter kind of starts like mid-January to like hits heavy February to like ends like early March, give or take.
Dang.
So he left her body. She luckily was not there long. She was found later that day, but the ice pick was still lodged in her head when she was found.
Oh my. That is
But due to
awful.
the
Oh my
foggy
God.
weather, the lack of witnesses, and the lack of evidence, there was no way to attach Edwards to that crime at the time. So that happened January 16th. Then 12 days later, on January 28th of 1970, the body of 33-year-old school teacher Catherine O'Brien Kelbrier was found on the back seat of a neighbor's car right in front of her apartment in Bethesda, Maryland.
Oh my, like just in the back seat?
Yes. Apparently it was super gory. She had her throat slashed. She suffered a total of 124 wounds between those areas of her chest and legs.
What the fuck? Oh my God,
Yeah,
that poor
so
woman. How old was she?
the coroner, she was 33 years old, and she was a school teacher.
Oh my God, that's yeah. Oh, that's relatable.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
God, that's so scary.
the coroner for Catherine revealed that she had most likely been hit on the back of the head when she was returning home that night from the grocery store. After being hit in the head, she was more than likely dragged inside the apartment to her kitchen, where he then took a knife out of her kitchen cabinet and slit her throat, stabbed her 6 times in the abdomen, and then 3 more times in the chest, and then dragged her body to her bedroom and then continued to slash at her for at least a half an hour. And that's where the rest of the wounds accumulated. They said it was like a bloodbath. There was blood all over her apartment.
What, like he just went crazy on her?
Mm-hmm.
Did he know her beforehand, or are these like random strangers?
These are just randoms. This is just randoms.
God.
And same with the first murder. There was evidence, but they didn't have the right stuff at the time, DNA evidence and stuff to be able to do it properly. So there was nothing at the time that could link him, especially because there was no connection to the victim. So they, couldn't link him at the time. So
Jesus.
That murder came and passed. They're investigating both crimes. Then fast forward to same year, 1970, but now it's February 2nd. This victim is 18-year-old FBI clerk Donna Sue Olgsby. She was found stabbed to death in her apartment in Alexandria, Virginia. Granted, it's not Maryland, but it's close enough in proximity where it could still be part of, the local area.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long to get to Alexandria from here. But this victim, she was found completely nude with multiple stab wounds all over her body, and then a pair of 3-inch sewing scissors lodged into one of her wounds.
Oh my. What the? Why would you do? Like, why would he do? Who? Like, this feels like he has rage. Like, to do scissors, sewing scissors. Aren't they? They're like bent slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, they're like in
now,
2 sections almost.
Due to the brutality of this in Virginia, that's when it got the investigators from all the different areas where these crimes were getting committed kind of talking, kind of realizing that there's a certain type of brutality. I do believe all the victims were brunette, so they kind of found like that kind of common denominator as well, as being like, okay, like do we got something brewing here? I can't remember and I couldn't find exactly like what the tip was, but there was something that kind of tipped them off to Edward slightly, and like caused them to kind of, start looking at him in a suspicious manner. So, at the time that these murders occurred, Edwards was actually working as a gas station attendant in the area where all of this kind of, was happening here in Maryland. He actually had a house in Bethesda, Maryland, that when he got put underneath suspicion and, cops were getting tips and things like that, they actually got a search warrant and decided to search his house. Granted, he's on parole anyway from previous, charges and shit.
Yeah.
So they decided to search his house, and then they end up finding various knives and guns, which actually violated his parole. So they're like, all right, cool, we might not get you on these murders, but we got you on this. So that caused Edwards to actually have to go back to the Patuxent Institute that he went to for the psychotherapy. And he was in there until 1977. No, you're good.
I had to unmute because there's like there's a dog barking and stuff happening outside. But maybe if they had kept him in there and didn't release him, none of these things would have happened. Actually, if they had, then none of these things would have happened.
Yeah. So he went back into the institute in 1970. He was there for 7 years because he was there until 1977. Still at this time, they didn't have sufficient enough evidence for those murders, so he was not charged with anything yet, other than breaking his parole with the gun violation.
Okay, so that's why he was brought in, but there's no like DNA or suspicion yet.
They have DNA collected, but during this time, that it wasn't advanced enough for them to have the tests.
Okay,
you get what I'm saying? Like, they collected the evidence and they stored it.
Yeah, but he was only arrested because of the gun violation, right? There was no suspicions for these murders?
He was... Okay. He was a suspect, but they didn't have any evidence to properly convict him or move on with charging him with those. So they at least got him on the parole to get him back sent to the institute to go back through, like, treatments and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But the only reason why he was there till 1977 was because in 1977, the state passed a new law that ended up prohibiting the detention of inmates with mental conditions for longer than their designated sentence. So, like, even though if you're a menace to society, but you're only charged with 12 years, they can't choose, well, hey, you're still a menace, to hold you past that 12-year sentence.
So they knowingly are legally obligated to let dangerous people out if they've served their sentences, even if their sentences maybe weren't quite long enough?
Yes, and like I said, this is 1970s. 1977 is the year that this law happened, so it could be overturned now, but this happened. And because of this, Edwards and 39 others were released on July 1st of 1977 from the institute, even after the staff themselves voiced concerns regarding Edwards specifically, that they did not think that he should be let back out into society.
And they just let these people out in drones. All these dangerous offenders, potentially. Maybe not all. Not going to say all.
Not all, but depending on your situation. But yes, that is kind of,
That's kind of extremely terrifying.
And they even did that. They even still released Edwards when they had documentation of him himself stating on multiple occasions that he had a separate violent personality that he dubbed and named the Beast, that would go nuts. And yes, like the movie Split.
I was literally going to say, was Split based off of this guy?
That made me think of that when I wrote this down, and I'm not sure.
While you're talking, I'm going to look it up.
That's fine. But he labeled his personality as the Beast, and that Beast would go nuts and go berserk around women, especially brunettes, is when it was triggered.
Okay, who is he mad at?
So
maybe his biological mother? Sorry, I'm just guessing.
Maybe his adoptive mother. Who knows what would have happened? I mean, not accusing anybody of anything, but she lost her husband. She had an adoptive son. He was young, single mom. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but you never know. And that shit does happen.
Yeah, there's so many things.
Or it could be nothing, and he just decided, that was his trigger point, where he was just like, yeah, fuck brunette.
That's crazy.
But yeah, let me know when you want me to continue.
It draws loose inspiration from the true case of Billy Milligan.
Okay.
Which was the first person in the U.S. to use dissociative identity disorder as a legal defense.
Okay, that makes sense.
So not this guy, but
very similar.
Very interesting, weird. Made me think of that too.
But yeah, so he was released in 1977. A year after his release, Edwards actually got married to a woman that was named Lisa, and then they moved from Maryland to Huntington Beach, California. During this move, everybody was happy and everything, but Edwards really struggled to keep a job due to his mental instability.
It's crazy that he got married.
Yes, I know. But that's a good sign, though. You went to rehabilitation, maybe it's working, you're trying to move on, you're trying to do normal things. Even while he has these voices in his head, But the voices in his head caused him to struggle to keep a job, which when he finally did get a job, he eventually ended up getting injured and fucking up his hand, which made him incapable of working at all. Which then his wife Lisa left him soon after that.
Oof. Those are going to trigger things, I would imagine.
And even after that, though, Edwards tried to control his desires. He tried to spend a lot of times in the woods, living in a camper with just, him and his dog. He tried.
Okay, well, then that's really sad that he tried, and it seems to have failed. He's already done some horrific shit up to this point, though. So it's like...
Yep. He's not done yet, sadly.
It's so hard because you feel bad for the mentally ill person.
And that's how I felt researching. Yeah. Like, writing all this down and researching it made me, I had that struggle, that terror. Like, yeah, you're a shitty person. You did really fucked up things. And yes, I'm team victims. But at the same time, I see if you were just given the right tools and the right guidance, it could have been prevented. All of it could have been prevented.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. But shit. God damn, that's so fucking violent. He's so violent.
Him doing the nature man lifestyle actually led to him eventually getting hired as a forest ranger officer at the South Coast Gun Club in Irving, California.
Oh, I just don't feel like he should be somebody in any sort of position of authority.
Yeah, so
that
happened. Fast forward to September 19th, 1981. Edwards was driving around in the Cleveland National Forest when he spotted two girls that were walking a dirt road. Those names were Vanessa. I might butcher these last names, and I'm sorry, but it's Vanessa Iberi.
Poor choice of
and
words,
Kelly.
Man. Start their names over after Man, really? You're gonna butcher their name? Man.
I didn't even think about that. Okay, so I might fuck up these names, and I'm sorry.
I'm just messing with you. You say that literally all the time. I say it as well. It's just a common phrase. I'm just giving you a hard time due to what I can only imagine.
I love it because I didn't even think about it, and I was like,
oh my god. Once again, just a little bit of humor before we get to what is about to be discussed, because I'm sure it's not good, and this is how I deal with things, but it is important to say their names, so I'm going to actually shut up now so you can say their names without me interrupting you.
These two girls, one's name was Vanessa Iberi, and then the other one was Kelly Cardier. Both these girls were 12 at the time.
Oh my god. Oh my god, so, babies.
Edwards drove within 10 feet of the girls and called out to them. I know.
Sorry.
He drove within 10 feet of the girls. No, you're good. And called out to them for them to come over to his car. When they did, because for some reason they did, he pulled out a gun and shot both the girls in the head, point blank, and sped off.
What the heck? What? Oh my god. For what reason? None.
And they were just walking.
All they did was walk over. 12 years old? What the fuck? What were their names again?
Vanessa and Kelly.
That is so sad.
Luckily, this crime was actually witnessed by a passerby who followed the truck that sped off that shot the girls and proceeded to record the license plate and send it directly over to the cops.
Thank God. Holy shit.
And in doing so, help arrived. Sadly, Vanessa died from her injuries, but Kelly ended up going through cranial surgery and survived the incident.
Holy shit, I was not expecting that. Oh my god.
Yep.
Oh my god, she had to live with that memory? Holy crap. Oh my god.
And luckily, with the witness who described the man, who described the vehicle, and reported everything to the cops, actually helped lead to Edwards getting caught. But when Edwards drove off from shooting Kelly and Vanessa, he actually fled from California back here to Maryland and
Oh
actually
shit, I
decided to
forgot we
hold
were in
up.
California. Sorry, I
Yep.
forgot we were in California. Oh my god.
So he fled
Sorry.
California, came back to
Jesus.
Maryland, and actually went to College Park, Maryland, which is literally like my backyard, basically.
Oof. That's
And
scary.
hid at a Days Inn hotel. He ended up, while he was there, calling two friends and some people that were in the institute with him, and like I guess telling them what happened and trying to get advice and get help. And those individuals, I'm not sure which one or if it was both of them, luckily called the state authorities. And not soon after he was at the Days End, he was followed by a squad of heavily armed state troopers that rolled up to get his ass.
So here's my thing. If you're calling your friends for help, asking them what you should do, then you remember what you did and you know it was fucking wrong to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So what the fuck? Are you sick? Are you mentally ill? Or are you just a fucking piece of shit who's using mental illness as a scapegoat to commit horrific murders of innocent women and children? Like, you call your friends, like, was he asking for help? Like, what? Help in, like, oh, what do I do? How do I not get caught kind of help? Or help, like, oh, I'm so mentally ill, I just did these things. But again, like, if it's out of control and it's the
If you were in
beast,
the
how do you
right state of
remember that?
mind to call for help, like, then you were in the mind that you knew exactly what you were doing.
Yeah, it just feels very much like just an excuse to commit crimes. I'm not saying it is. Fuck.
So at least he's caught, though. The state troopers caught him. But remember, this is not for the
Yeah,
murders that they
it's true.
suspecting him of in Maryland. This is for the murders he committed in California.
Yeah,
So they get him, right? And they're trying to work out, like, extraditing and all that shit because, that's what he's getting charged for in California. During the trial periods, Edward was claiming to suffer from headaches and periodic blackouts that rendered him incapable of remembering what had happened. That's
so
what he
then
was
why are
claiming.
you
That was his
calling for
defense.
help? Why are you fucking calling for help if you have blackouts, you don't remember what's happening? I don't believe it, you fucking liar. That's what I feel now.
Karma is sweet justice, though. So obviously his defense didn't work. He was convicted and sentenced to death row at the San Quentin State Prison. So that's cool. Now,
that's very
on
cool.
December 2008, Edwards was admitted to the California Medical Facility in Vacaville. I think I said that wrong, but either way, he was committed to the California Medical Facility for treatment because he ended up getting lung cancer.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, karma's a little like, karma. And then he eventually, due to the natural causes, lung cancer, all that shit, he died February 14th, 2009.
What a piece of shit.
But 3 years after he passed away, they still had the cold cases here in Maryland, and somebody decided to put their hands in and take a gander at it, and they finally had DNA advanced enough where they were able to get DNA from a blood stain that was on a jacket from Sherry Kennedy's DNA that showed a match and everything. It was not enough to be considered a perfect match, but it was enough for both her case and the other girl's case, because there was something that correlated, to be officially closed as of January 2012, naming Edwards as their killer.
That is wild that they didn't even solve those and connect him to any of the Maryland cases until after he died.
And he was never, convicted. He was just connected. So those families still don't get that justice in that way, but at least they get closure as to who's done it. They'll never get the why, but they just got the who. And that's, that's the Bethesda Butcher. That is what I happened to go down the rabbit hole on that I thought was wild. And I think it's weird that it was in my backyard. And the fact that, I love true crime as much as I do, that it hasn't really been as documented. I mean, there's so many cases out there that haven't been documented. There's more than just the Ted Bundy and the John Wayne Gacy's out there.
Yeah, that guy was horrific. He killed children. He killed a 14-year-old, a 33-year-old, and two 12-year-olds. Is that all of the victims, right?
He killed
one
a 14, he killed a 14, a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, and an 18-year-old, the FBI agent.
I thought he also, what about the school teacher?
Yeah, she's the 33-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, we should have a list of all of their names and put them in the show notes so that, like, when you're done listening to the episode, because we make our episodes really mostly for streaming for you to listen to. I know that we started doing videos, and we might do them here and there, but the whole point is to just talk and have you guys do whatever you're doing and listen. And I think having a reflection afterwards too.
Most definitely, and it's good to pay homage to those that we're talking about, because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, there's no disrespect that I mean in telling the story. I am telling the story so that way the memory of all those involved lived on, and that way they're getting the respect and homage, and maybe it's going to cause other people to want to do research and also pay their respect and homage.
Yeah.
But what are your final thoughts, man? I mean, that was a lot to unload on you.
I think that this story highlights how far we have come in the field of mental health and mental health care, but it also highlights how even when we think we're doing enough, we're not. And the mental health of one person affects so many people around them, and that's why taking care of each other and our family members and their mental health and being mindful that everybody is going through something is important, so that if somebody like Edwards here is born and then adopted and things happen that, like we said, we don't know what happened, but if he had the supports he needed, like obviously something, not blaming the adoptive parents, but I don't know. My final thoughts are...
He fell through the cracks a lot in the system. Like, the system failed him between adults and parents and even our legal system. Like, if somebody is still a threat to society and you have the staff that see them every day still telling you that and you still ignore that, like, out of respect and help, not only just for society, but for that individual themselves, like, you should still seek out to get them the help they deserve instead of just dropping them off to, figure it out. And we see that still happening to this day. I mean, look at the individual that stabbed the poor woman on the bus because he was mentally unstable.
That was awful. That was awful.
But that's my point, is like what I'm talking about that happened back in the 70s, like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, is still happening to this day. We're still letting people fall through the cracks, and what good is that doing us as a whole?
Yeah, and it's hard to progress when there's always pushback. It's almost like with the way that our government is set up, and not any specific party, not getting into my political beliefs. I'm just stating that when you have two generally ruling political parties, Republican versus Democrat, and every 4 years, hypothetically, one shifts in the office, all the progress, or most of the progress made over the course of 4 years, just gets redone, flipped around, reworded, or done differently, so the progress is lost.
Back pushed. Yeah.
And so maybe in the course of 8 years, because we have a very liberal president, a Democratic base, but maybe not necessarily, you can be liberal or progressive, right? But still be a Republican. There's ways. You can be a
mixture of everything. Like, you don't have to think one way or another. You can have beliefs that, just same with religion, like we talked about. You can believe a little bit of everything, because I don't necessarily believe that both sides are wrong. I think that they both have good points in certain aspects.
Right, but when you get extreme, and extremism to any level is wrong. And extremism...
It's toxic.
And it causes systems to fail, like mental health institutions that keep our public spaces and families units, not even family units like traditional, I'm just saying like households where people live together or whatever, safe, because we need a system that allows us to seek the care and that we're afford the care. Because the other thing is, if you can't afford it, you're going to be sick. Oh, you're good. But if you can't afford care, then if you're mentally unstable and you're stressed about paying for your medicine, the first thing you're going to stop doing is taking your medicine and seeing the doctor because you don't have the money to do it. You need to survive, and that means eating and living somewhere.
I've seen that with my dad, and my dad's not on the mental side of things, but he's on like the heart pills and like his seizure medication and stuff, and he will prioritize electricity and food over that. And back to like your extremist things, I mean, we can see that like the extremist beliefs, like even going back to our previous episodes about John Humphrey Noyes, like you saw like how his extreme beliefs and views on things ended up being toxic and eventually causing the downfall of a society. It's the same concept, just different story, and it's history just repeating itself, and that's the definition of insanity, dude. We gotta switch it up. I mean, the system we have in place was not meant to be in place for fucking ever. It was meant to be challenged. It was meant to be switched up. It was meant to be altered, not to be complacent.
And this story, I'm really surprised that this hasn't been spoken about more, that more people haven't heard about this. You should let us know if you've ever heard of this horrific human being.
For real. Because I lived in Maryland my whole life, and I hadn't.
How do you say it again? I literally cannot remember.
Bethesda Butcher.
Bethesda. The Bethesda Butcher. My golly. My golly gosh. Rest in peace to all of his victims, and I hope that the survivor, Kelly, has lived a good, long, healthy life, and she found healing. And my gosh, I just can't imagine living through that. I can't imagine dying like that at the hands of somebody like that at such a young age.
And so random too. Like,
that's the part. Like, all of it. Like, the scariest thing, you can go your whole life being the safest person, but it's just, oh my gosh, that's why people have anxiety. Because it's the randomness, the possibilities. So just be mindful of your surroundings.
I want to thank you, and I want to thank the fam for listening and going on this little true crime, journey with me. Like I said, I know it's not exactly family lineage, but it is my backyard, my hometown, my turf, and like it makes me wonder how many times have I walked the same earth that, these incidents have occurred.
Yeah, it ties in, and thanks for sharing. That was quite the story, and I think it's important to talk about. And it was thorough. It was thorough, and I enjoyed it. Is not the right word, but I enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I know of these victims and their stories. So
100%.
I will never stop asking myself, who are you?
Who are you? Who are you, fuckers?
Whoa. Please don't be a butcher or any sort of violent person. Love you.